Welcome to the Freedom Lovin' Podcast, rocking the strategies that free up your business and your life. Now, here's your host, Kevin Koskela.
Welcome back to Freedom Lovin'. This is Kevin, and this is episode number 127. And in just a minute, I have an interview coming up with Gulen de Vichentis, and she is a world traveler and also is on a campaign to end all of the annoying frustrations that we all face as world travelers at borders. So we have a really interesting conversation, and she had reached out to me. She had heard one of my previous shows and reached out to me, and I read her blog post, and I was just like, wow, I can't believe that someone else shares this same viewpoint that I do out there. This issue of crossing over borders, these artificial lines in the sand, and having to go through all kinds of headaches with paperwork and visas, and even just standing in line. Like, I've gone into countries where the wait to just get your passport stamped is over an hour, and there's just so many things that if we could just get rid of all that, life would be just so much more amazing than it already is. So stay tuned for that in just a minute. Oh, and I forgot to mention at the end of that show, her blog. I mentioned it at the beginning, but I just wanted to emphasize it. It's because she has some really interesting writings. It's Gulen, that's GULIN.world. So Gulen.world. Let's see. For me, I just started a meetup group here in San Diego, and it's basically finding freedom in an unfree world. So we are going through the Harry Browne classic book, How I Found Freedom in an Unfree World, and taking it kind of chapter by chapter, or maybe 2 chapters at a time, and going through all the traps that he outlines. So the first meetup was this past week, and we went over the introduction, so it was kind of like overview of the book, and the identity trap. Finding freedom in an unfree world is all about what you can do to give yourself more freedom in the world. And that's what I like to talk about on this show. And then the identity trap is when you kind of feel like you're living your life for somebody else. So you maybe were programmed to believe that this is the way life is, and that you have to do certain things, and you have to act certain ways and behave in certain ways. And that kind of keeps you from being free. So anyway, it's an interesting group. If anybody listening is here in the area, I'd love to have you. You can just look up on meetup.com and look up Finding Freedom in an Unfree World. And their search function is pretty horrible. So if you need any help, just reach out to me at kevin@freedomlovin.com, and I'll send you the link, because I don't think I could read it off on the podcast. I think it's like some long link. But anyway, that's all I had. I hope you're having a great season here, and go out there and build some freedom, and enjoy the interview, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Well, I am really excited to have a special guest on the show today, and her name is Gulen de Vichentis. And Gulen has a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering, was a university teaching assistant for 10 years, a world traveler with 2 round-the-world trips, visitor to over 100 countries, and fluent speaker of 4 languages. She currently resides in Italy with a goal to travel to every country in the world and burn her passports in the end. She can be found online at Gulen.world. And Gulen, welcome to Freedom Lovin'.
Thank you, Kevin. I actually done 3 round the world tours now, and I've been to 148 countries.
Oh my God. Wow. I can't keep up with you.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
That was before I got the Italian citizenship and moved to Italy.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Yeah. So how many countries? 248?
148.
148. Okay. I was thinking there was only about 220 something countries in the world.
Actually, there are 193 in the UN plus 2 observer states. And so I'm counting to 195. But of course, there are the unrecognized de facto states and many countries. So there are different ways of counting. But the main number is the UN number, 193.
Okay. So you're well on your way to getting there.
Yeah. Hopefully in a couple of years, I'll be done. I mean, not done. I don't like the word done, but I'll have stuck in every country in the world.
Right, right. Yeah, I want to get into that. There was a quote that I read on your blog that I wanted to start with here, and I'll just read that off and then we can move on. So The quote is, "The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man." And that's George Bernard Shaw. And it seems like you're really living this philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I have to say, because I've been called unreasonable, that the way I think is just so different, and I see the world as mad. I mean, and one of my quotes was just trying to keep my sanity in a mad world, because I really cannot understand how people accept this stuff. And to me, it's just ridiculous. And then whenever I try to say, but this is not the way things should be. I mean, everybody would be saying, no, you have to accept it. This is what it is, the world, just accept it. And I just couldn't bring myself to accept it. So when I read that quote, I was just, okay, I'm the unreasonable person who is trying to adapt the world to what my idea of how I see the world is.
Yeah. So can you go back and talk about like, what was it like growing up and what made you kind of like look at the world differently and how do you see it now?
I actually grew up very in a secluded world, in a conservative society in Turkey. And I was expected to do things the proper way, go to the best university. I got into mechanical engineering just because I understood maths and sciences. I wasn't interested in mechanical engineering, but I mean, you get to the best schools and you get the top grades. So you go to the best university. And I actually enjoyed life there. I mean, at the university, my two uncles and my aunt are just professors at the university, and it's a good life. And I got married. And so I tried to do what society expected of me, but then I realized this is not what I want out of life. So I got divorced, and then it was a struggle with my mother. And then I said, I want to travel the world. And of course, that was another struggle, because a woman, especially in Turkey at that time, I suppose I am the first person to go backpacking around the world in Turkey.
Wow.
And my family, of course, objected. Where are you going? Out on your own?
And this was, how old were you at that time?
I wasn't young. I was 31, 32. Okay. So, as I said, this was 10 years of university, getting married and divorced and all that kind of stuff. And I actually see that my marriage was my passport to travel the world, to get my freedom in a way, because I feel so guilty. I felt so guilty. I've been put that in my head and my heart and the society, the pressure. If I didn't try to give them what they wanted, I wouldn't have been able to do what I wanted. I would have just felt so guilty. But I went to the best university, did the mechanical engineering, did the teaching. Okay, nice, got married, but okay. And then I said, sorry, these are not working for me. So I set out to discover. So after the first round the world tour, I got into another marriage again. And again, the society pressure, after the first round the world tour, you see things differently. Okay, you are away from all the pressure. And what I said was, this is returning to an aquarium after being in the oceans. But
I love that analogy. That's awesome.
I mean, the social life is just all these people, and it's, of course, more secure, and it might be sort of dangerous out there, but it's open and you are free. People do not know you, so you do not care. But anyway, and after some time, you get back to the normal rhythms of the social life. But again, it wasn't for me. And I set out another round the world tour. And then I was actually writing a book. And while writing, I got a sailing license. And then when I got the license, I just said, I've done one round the world tour by land, and then now I got the license. I'll be traveling by sea this time. And then afterwards, I wanted to learn to fly as well. And then I'll get a license, a pilot license, and then travel around the world flying as well.
Wow.
Okay, that was, of course, these are just fun ideas for me. But then, why not turn this into reality? I mean, the sailing part. But then, of course, sailing is not just like the sailing. I didn't really know sailing. I got the license, but going out at sea is a different matter. You have to learn the sea, and you need experience it's not like on land where you can find people to help you or whatever.
Right.
Or you need to buy a boat. Where did I didn't have that kind of money anyway.
Yeah.
But then I got this boat going to Phuket, and I got to be a part of a crew by chance. Anyway, I won't be going into all the details of the travel. No, but taking that trip, I bumped into so many imaginary lines because they said, okay, I had a special passport. I didn't need a visa to go to China, for example. But then they wouldn't let me on board because I wanted to cross the Pacific Ocean on a cargo ship. They said, we won't let you on board, and we won't as long as if you do not have a Chinese visa. I said, I don't need a visa for it. And I just couldn't get around to, and I said, just get me on. I will be paying you if I cannot get on into China, and I won't be able to get on the ship, and you will keep the money, okay? So,
yeah.
And I couldn't explain them. And then I tried to go to the embassy, Chinese embassy in Bangkok, and I said, okay, just issue me a visa. I don't need. They said, you need a visa. I don't need a visa. And even the embassies do not know the realities of the situation. And then they said, you have to go back to Turkey. Why? I'm in Thailand. Why should I be going halfway around back to Turkey to get a visa that I do not need? And then the same sort of thing happened with Vietnam. They said, okay, you need a visa to get. I wanted to get a flight ticket, and then they wouldn't issue me the ticket without a visa. I said, no, I don't need a visa. Again, this is a special passport. I went to the embassy in Laos, Luang Prabang, and they said, you need a visa. Again.
Wow. Just getting the runaround.
It's just crazy. And then I said, okay, I won't be, I know that I buy the ticket and I go and I don't need a visa, but I said, okay, let me not risk it. I won't be wasting some money. And then by chance, I was writing this to a group of friends, and there was someone in my group. He said, come on in. We are just in Vietnam right now. And they got in with the special passport, no problem. But of course, the thing is, at airports, they know these rules. But at land borders, for example, they do not know these rules. So I got my ticket and went into Vietnam, of course, no trouble. But, all this stuff, it was just getting me crazy. And then I crossed the Pacific, and then I was just hopping so nicely through Mexico. I went down all through Central America, and I came to the Panama border. And then they said, you need a visa. And I said to myself, I knew that I needed a visa for Panama. I had researched it, of course. I'm a traveler, world traveler. I know about all this stuff. But I didn't need a visa for any of the countries in Central America. And it had just completely slipped my mind. I was hopping happily, okay. And I said, okay, come on, just let me in. They could have let me in,
Yeah.
It's just, I'm leaving. It's obvious that I'm a backpacker. What am I going to do? And then I said, I'm not going to be eating your country. That's an expression we say in Turkish. What am I going to be doing to you? I'm just a tiny woman, whatever. Obviously. It's just.
Yeah. So you were running up against all these visa walls, the kind of bureaucratic nonsense of that every country in the world makes people go through. And so were you feeling as encouraged to keep traveling, or was it kind of a downer for you?
It really was a downer, actually. I had got bitten by a dog in Salvador, and I had passed Nicaragua, and I couldn't get a rabies shot. And when you don't get a rabies shot, you die. You die.
It's trouble, yeah.
It's a horrible death. Yeah, you don't have any pills if you get sick or whatever. So, I was, again, depressed with that as well. When I was refused entry into Panama, that was also affecting, not life and death, but yeah, it could be, because I needed to get that shot, and they didn't have that shot in Nicaragua. So, and I had just skipped Costa Rica, and it was just, I said, what am I doing here? What is going on? And I just I mean, I wasn't suicidal, but I said, okay, just let go of everything. And okay, if I get rabies, I get rabies. I don't get the shot and whatever, and all this kind of stuff. And I was just so upset. And for example, even getting on the cargo ship, they had just made me sign a paper saying that they could search my bodily cavities, and I found all this against human dignity. I mean, they can, of course, but I mean, I'm getting into America. It was just another thing, you may have a visa. I said, I have an American visa, but you don't have a machine-readable passport. We didn't have machine-readable passports at the time in Turkey. They were talking about it. And then, I mean, this passport or whatever it is, it's just, I mean, I was just so upset.
Yeah. So what keeps you even now traveling and wanting to keep exploring the world despite all of these issues that are just, it really slows everybody down. It stops people from getting through borders, and it becomes just this big pain in the butt.
Well, you know what? I mean, you just feel like when I just wanted to give up so many times, but then after a while, you just forget about this stuff and you want to go on travel. You want to see these places and you get over it. But I suppose if it wasn't for this burning of passports thing, I wouldn't have gone to every country. That wasn't even in my mind at all. But actually, at the end of the second round of the world tour, I came to Italy, and then I was going to go through Greece, through the Greek islands to go back to Turkey. And actually, even with the special passport, I know that Greece needs a visa from the Turkish. But Italy, I came into Italy without a visa, and it was fine. And then there are no borders between Italy and Greece. So I said, okay, let me get a visa from Greece just in case. Again, the same situation happened. I went to the embassy here in Italy. They said, go back to Turkey to get a visa. It's just, it's just so horrible. And anyway, and then I said, okay, I'm not doing that. So I went to Rhodos because there are no checks. I went in. And then when I was going into Turkey, they said, okay, where is your visa? I don't have a visa. I came from Italy. I don't need a visa. I didn't need a visa. They said, okay, we are going to put a persona non grata in your passport. And you will be paying a 600 euro fine. And I was just so, I said, okay, I've done 2 round the world tours. I've been to 110 countries. Yes, put a persona non grata on my passport and send me back to my country. I mean, it was just, and I will not be traveling anymore. I will not, because this is just ridiculous. And you come up with all these things. What are you helping? What are you saving? Who are you helping? And you know what? I mean, I went to the Turkish embassy and whatever, and I just saw the people doing the same thing that other governments were doing to me. My government was doing to some other people. I mean, asking for these people. Let alone that, the governments were doing the same thing to their own people. There was a guy, a Turkish guy living in Italy, who wanted to go to a wedding of his sister. And then the woman at the embassy was just saying, you have to get these papers, pay this amount of money. What for? The guy just wants to go to his sister's wedding. And it's the country that he's born in.
Yeah, it's total insanity. So at what point, when you were doing these round the world trips, at what point did you decide to make it a goal to burn your passports?
I actually, and then I got married and settled in Italy and got citizenship and had a child. And then, things sort of, that has been 5-6 years ago now. And then so I sort of forgot all that kind of, and I was just thinking when I had my daughter, okay, she grows up a bit, and then I will be just getting her in my back and traveling the world. I thought, okay, of course, I want to travel with my family. I actually thought that I didn't think of traveling, but, I came up from a divorced family, and to me, finding someone special was so important. But I found in my diaries, dating back to my university years, but my wish in life was to find someone special and travel the world together. And then I had this son, and I had a child. Okay, let's go around the world together as a family. And so when she was 3.5 years old, I said I wanted to do the Trans-Siberian. That's the dream of travelers as well.
Yeah.
Of course, once you do the Trans-Siberian, I mean, I see the world as a whole, and I don't want to go all the way and then come back. Once you start, you just go around the other way.
Yeah.
So I was writing to the newspapers, and then I realized that I didn't want to talk about my travels, but I wanted to talk about these travel issues and security issues as well, all these searches and things, because that's another madness to me, if you ask me. They are not just serving anything but hassling normal people. Anyway, and then the newspaper sort of wasn't interested in that. And then I just came up with this thing. Anybody who doesn't question borders should not be calling himself or herself a traveler. And I just said, okay, I'm going to travel to every country in the world and burn my passports. And, these are not that, I don't think about this stuff. It just comes out of my pen when I'm writing to someone or whatever. Yeah. And then I just say, okay, this is a good idea. So
yeah, that's amazing. I'm curious because you probably followed some travel bloggers and people online that are doing a lot of traveling and posting videos and pictures and all that.
Yes.
And what I'm amazed at, because I've got a lot of people that I follow, what I'm amazed at is just the lack of questioning of the things that you're questioning out there. Like people that have, like you said, like people that have traveled to 150 countries. And they haven't even thought about this idea that, I'm getting hassled every single time I cross like we say, an artificial line in the sand.
Exactly. I mean, and the thing is, they don't talk about this stuff. They don't question it. And the security searches, how is it possible? I really do not understand. Even, as I said, on a Thai passport, except the status quo, it's just so indoctrinated in our minds. And the guy said, it is what it is. How can it be? Yes, it is what it is. Of course, I know that it is, but it shouldn't be what it is. I mean, because it's birthplace racism. Or a Singaporean guy, he cannot go to some place because there is no embassy in his country. And if there is no embassy in that country, they do not issue visas to go somewhere. I don't remember the specific country now. And then he accepts it as it is. But why? Why? I mean, just because you are born there? I was refused a Canadian visa when I was living in Italy. I was married to an Italian, and I was going to get Italian citizenship anyway, in a couple of years. And I should have gotten if it wasn't for the Italian bureaucracy anyway. And Italians do not need a visa to go to Canada. And I was refused. What for? Why was I refused? I mean, I have all the qualities. I'm a mechanical engineer. And I mean, if I wanted to go to Canada, I would have applied through the normal ways. And I mean, as I said, I have all the qualifications. And whereas my, I say it's a bit of local neighbor, but I have a neighbor. She doesn't know a word of English. She has not traveled 50 kilometers away from even the place that she is born. If she wanted, she could just buy a ticket and go to Canada. Is this logical? I mean, it's just...
Yeah.
So there are so many things. And then another story, shall I tell, or is it too much?
Yeah, I don't know. I love the stories.
For example, about Tanzania. This was in my first round the world tour. And then I found out, that we didn't need a visa beforehand, but there was an attack in an American embassy in Tanzania. So the name of a Turkish guy was involved in the attacks. So they started requiring visas from us. And then I didn't think much about it. I just went to the embassy, and it was just a simple thing. Just present your papers, pay the money, and get your visa. But then after the second round of world tour, and I started seeing these things, and does it make sense that somebody born within that imaginary line that you were born with did something bad, and you are all suspects now? Everyone from the 1-month-old baby in the cradle to the 80-year-old auntie. I mean, it's just ridiculous, all this kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. Coming to the security, I will be connecting this to the security searches. I mean, somebody did something. September 11 happened. And then since then, it's been, 17 years on, we are all suspects whenever we want to step on the holy grounds of an airport. I mean, to me, it's ridiculous. How long is this madness going to be lasting? It's a security theater. It's just...
Yeah, well, let's take a step back a little bit because I agree with you 100% at how ridiculous it is. But let's talk about borders. What do you think the purpose, like, how do you think borders originated, and what is the purpose of having these borders around nation states at this point?
Well, that's another thing. I mean, I understand the way, in a way, the thing, because people want to be together with people who are like them.
Hmm.
But what I see is, I don't love all the Turkish people. I mean, I am Turkish, of course. That's my identity. I grew up speaking Turkish. I mean, we have a culture. But the thing is, even the young generation growing up now, my culture is not, they may be Turkish, I may be Turkish, but our culture is completely different. And Turkey is a big country. And I don't agree with everyone. I don't like all those people. There are many people in Turkey that I do not wish to be associated with. And then there are many people in many other countries that I feel close to. I mean, like you, for example, and the people who share the same beliefs, the same ideas, the same values as me. I mean, that's why
Right.
I say, for example, why am I traveling? I am traveling to find my family around the world, to just make up my own family. I mean, I don't share much, of course. I cannot keep in touch with them most of the time. But I connect with people who are sort of like me. To me, that's the biggest lie. I mean, that the Turkish, the Israelis, the Americans, the Italians, there are some general characteristics of every country or every nation in a way. But it's
Right.
really wrong to generalize these things. So
Yeah, this whole idea of the accident of birth is, it's always interested me. It's like you have to be ascribed all these things just because you were born there, even though you didn't choose to be born in that place.
exactly.
And I find that to be so interesting that we've, all these years, and we still have this belief that that is so meaningful, is where you were born. And this is what it gives you all these things and takes away all these other things.
Because the political structure of the world, I mean, that's how you are defined. The citizenship, the state, your statehood, that's what defines you in this world. And then I started, for example, it didn't end with the visa stories. Then I started hearing the citizenship stories of mixed couples, for example. We have this Italian-Russian friend, and then they had a child. And then I said, she gets both citizenships, right? And then the mother said the mother is Russian. Well, for now, yes, but the daughter was born in Italy. So Russia doesn't like it that somebody has another citizenship first. So when she turns 18, she has to choose. Does she want to be Russian or Italian? She can be only one. But if she had been born in Russia, she could have kept both citizenships. This is just like a capricious, I don't know. I mean, you are getting married. What is this? She has, I mean, it's your identity. She has an Italian father. She has a Russian mother. She speaks both languages and she belongs to both cultures. Why shouldn't she be holding citizenship? Why should she have to apply for a visa to go to her mother's country or her father's country when she grows up after 18? It's ridiculous. People, Indians, for example, India doesn't recognize double citizenship. Some countries recognize double citizenship, some do not. So people have their dying mothers because they are living in America now. They had to renounce Indian citizenship. So now they want to go to India and they are just faced with all this trouble, bureaucratic trouble, to go to see that. As I said, it's just unbelievable, all this kind of stuff. Unbelievable. And
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Now, if I can play devil's advocate for a minute. So what you want is open borders all across the planet, right? No borders anywhere. So wouldn't that create a lot of danger for a lot of people?
Well, to me, I mean, when no borders can stay, but people should be able to move freely, I would say. Because, somebody needs to organize an area or do what they have a say or what to do with the resources over there and etc. But I don't really agree that there is going to be a mass exodus from even Africa. I mean, I know that there is a lot of people dying to cross borders or whatever, but what people do not see, the majority of the people do not want to leave their homelands, do not want to leave the place they are born because they are comfortable there. They have no idea and they have no wish to go anywhere. So, and even if they go, I've read so many other stories as well. People come to Europe and they actually do not like it here and they would like to go back to their country. But then after you have suffered so much, paid so much money to get into here and suffered and gone through all the bureaucratic work and got refugees, they cannot return because they have invested so much of their lives. And so even if they want to go back, they are just blocked here.
Right.
I mean, there are professors and academics making research on this. For example, when there was open borders with Marrakesh and Spain, people go to Spain to work at the time, the season of whatever the work is, and then they go back to their own countries because they really do not want to live there. But then when you close the borders, it blocks you there because you know that if you go back to your country, you won't be able to get back in again. So, and one of the reasons that I am against all this kind of stuff, people are spending, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure of these numbers, but €1 billion or dollars to get into a country. And now we are spending, I'm saying we because we are the Western world, who is Europe or America, and we are spending €1 billion to keep them out. And does it work? So many people are dying. Put that money on people, on infrastructure. Why am I just putting up? I mean, the more we spend on technology to stop people, the more we build fences and put police guards or whatever, the more people find other ways because there is no way to stop movement because it's just a natural part of life. It's like breathing, it's like eating, it's like working. I mean,
Yeah, so there's a quote on your blog. You said, travel or movement is an inalienable right that states have hijacked from us. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I feel. I mean, that's not the only thing that they have, governments have hijacked from us. I mean, they have hijacked even the right to work. What do you mean? I mean, movement, as I said, it's just a natural. Do we move in our lives? Yeah, we move, of course. I mean, we want to go places. And it's like breathing. It's like, I don't know, sitting and eating or talking to friends. Can you imagine a right or freedom of breathing or freedom of eating? It just seems so wrong to me. It's an oxymoron, freedom of movement or right of movement. But it has become like this and it has been accepted like this. I don't know. I mean, as I said, with the work permits as well. I mean, they hijack your right. No, you cannot work unless you have all these papers. And then, okay, what do you know? You have to present all those papers and pay money to the governments in order to be able to work. I mean, you have to keep on living a normal life, right? I mean,
yeah, I know it's so tough. You have to kind of go along with it. There's sometimes not a choice. Now, as far as burning your passports, where did you come up with that idea, and what do you think? What's behind that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there are many people. I mean, not many, but there are people who think like me and then for open borders, no borders. But there isn't, how are we going to achieve that? There has to be I was reading, of course, this came from Gandhi. How did that movement start? He burned their passes in South Africa. And I think I sort of got the idea from that. And then some people tell me, you have to remove that violent part from your project if you want to get onto the media or whatever. And people see this as violent. It's paper. It's just paper, what I'm burning. And when I say burn passports, and I want this to be a movement, and it has to be all around the world. People should be supporting me, whatever. But I don't mean this in a violent way. I mean, I won't be just getting my passports and marching up with slogans. No, I'm not that kind of person. I'm angry at the world. But I would just put up a fire, and I would like to just, as a protest for myself, because I cannot really bear this burden and I just want to throw it and burn them. That's it. I don't want it to do anybody harm, and I don't want anybody to do any harm to any other person because of this. And I don't know if you know Mike Gogulski.
Yeah, I've heard that name.
He renounced his citizenship, American citizen. And then when I read that, I said, okay, I've got a competitor now, because as I said, I was the only one who had an idea to just get at least the question in people's mind about these open borders and the ridiculousness of all this kind of stuff. So he renounced it, and then he wanted to start a mass movement of Americans renouncing their citizenship. I said, that's a very good idea as well. But of course, it won't be happening. I mean, there are many Americans renouncing citizenship, and it's increasing. But it's increasing because of the IRS and tax reasons mostly.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. In order to do that, you have to pay, and it keeps going up every year.
Yeah.
You have to pay quite a bit of money to the government, and you have to have an exit interview. So they have to agree to let you out of your citizenship.
Yeah, I know. I read all that. Beforehand, it was easy. You didn't even have to pay for anything. And then afterwards, they came up with $200. Now it's at $1,000 or something. And then, they are making it harder every day.
Yeah, for sure.
But at least you can still get out. For example, Turkey doesn't recognize that. I mean, they won't let you out of citizenship unless you get another citizenship, because otherwise you will be stateless, and that will be causing you trouble. And so they are sort of protecting you from being stateless. But, it's just like I feel, okay, I was born married, and then they won't let me be a single person. They might have to see me married to another person. So that's only that one they will divorce me. I mean, what? I don't know. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how that all works.
Yeah.
So you have this idea of, you call it global apartheid, and I'm curious about that. Like, what does exactly that mean? I mean, I kind of know just from reading your blog, but if you can explain that a little more, and do you think that's something that people can resonate with?
Yeah, it's just because this thing, you are born here, you cannot go there unless you have present us some papers or whatever. So I call it global apartheid, or birthplace racism, or injustice at birth, because you are born and then your radius of movement in the world is just defined by where you are born. There was a Black American woman who is heading for every country. And she was saying, how difficult it is being a Black and traveling. I mean, I understand there probably is racism against her when traveling as well. But, she has an American passport, and an Afghani can only travel to 25 countries without a visa. So they are just so restricted to where they can go in this world. So you are just, as I said, put in boxes, in cages, in pens or whatever, and then so you are supposed to be stuck there unless you prove. Or this is also economic apartheid as well, because people with money in their pockets can even buy European citizenships. It's on sale. Portugal, UK, America. You can, if you know the way, it's just easy. I mean, basically not easy, but 500,000 euros or even 300,000 euros you buy a place in Portugal, and you can get your way in a couple of years. You get residency, and then you get citizenship.
Right.
I mean, I am privileged, I am not a masochist, and I like to keep my life. I mean, I'm fine, but I cannot stand this injustice and this global apartheid. I mean, people have a right to their, the pursuit of happiness. And so it's just normal. People search for a better life. We all do. And I believe that just like I did for myself, I think everybody else has the right to want it for themselves as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were to burn your passport, let's say, then do you have a backup plan as far as how you'd be able to travel? Or is that just sort of like the end goal?
No, actually, well, it depends on how I do it. I was thinking that I burn my expired passports, and my husband says that I have to burn current ones. And, in Turkey, this says jail time. It's a criminal offense because your passport doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the government.
Oh, that's right.
And in Italy, it's not like that. I can burn Italian passports with no problem. Okay. They just issue you a fine or whatever. Anyway, but the thing is, I'm on the side of Galileo. I don't want to just punish myself for no reason. If I knew that it was going to change something in the world, I would do it. I would get into jail as well. I would burn my normal passports, get into jail, and then fine. But, in Turkish, we have this thing, the mouse stopped talking to the mountain and the mountain didn't even notice. So if I just put myself into all this trouble and nobody notices or cares, why should I be putting myself into so much trouble? So I won't be doing that.
Right.
And then, but of course, I will be burning my passports after I travel to every country. So I'm just thinking that I won't wish to travel anymore. But of course, I have two lives, one in Turkey and one in Italy. And my daughter, I don't know where she's going to be going or when she grows up. And I say, wherever you go, I'll be following you. And so that's why I said, I want to die stateless. I cannot live stateless, unfortunately, because it's really difficult to live stateless. You cannot going to the hospital, forget about getting a job or doing the basic things in life. It's very difficult.
Yeah. So when you say stateless, you mean just not a citizen of any country?
Yeah, exactly. But if I grow to a ripe old age of 80 or something, I think I can sort of manage lying to both states, to Italy, because I'm saying I have a Turkish citizenship, so you just kick me out of citizenship. And the same thing with Turkey, and then get both of my citizenships canceled. But I don't know. We see how things progress, and I haven't got anywhere with all this kind of stuff, trying to get media attention somehow. As I said, if there isn't anybody behind me to support me in any way, I might just be burning my passport in the fireplace here with my husband. Fine, but it's going to be for myself, because as I said, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to have kept quiet when I just saw all this and then be a quiet witness to all this. It's just my way of protest. So,
yeah, one thing that comes to mind is that there's a group of entrepreneurs that are called digital nomads. I'm sure you've heard that term. And like a lot of them travel very regularly. It's like they'll spend a few months in one place, move on to another place. And it's a constant struggle with visas and passports, and like this whole thing with living in Thailand. It's getting a little bit better now, but traditionally you can go to Thailand and I think you get a 2-month visa.
2 months?
And then at the end of 2 months, you have to leave and do a visa run. You have to go to some other country for a day and then come back. And it's just it's a game. It's just a silly game. And people do this because Thailand, is a good place to be if you're a digital nomad, and so are a lot of other places. And people put up with all this stuff, but like you were saying earlier, like I don't hear too many people complaining about it. It's sort of like that's just what you do. And I feel like this could catch on, like this idea could catch on in that community because they have to deal with this so much.
I'm not sure if it could catch on. I was thinking, as I said, with the traveler groups or whatever, but people, because they are privileged, and I think that nobody really wants to give up their privilege, even if they have to do these runs around and go to another country. I think people prefer to walk around the stone instead of removing that stone. I don't know. Maybe you are right. I hope you are right. It could be, but...
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's because it's almost like someone has to step forward because nobody wants to be the first one and no one wants to be punished for, this stuff, because you hear the horror stories. And I had one, I think I've actually told it on this podcast, but a friend of mine was visiting from the UK. He came to the US and he flew into, I think it was Boston, and they pulled him aside because he just had a backpack. He said he was going to be here for 3 months. And he only had a small backpack, and they said they didn't believe his story. Yeah. And so they pulled him into a room with, the locked doors, took his cell phone away, and basically badgered him for 2 hours and tried to get him to, I guess, say something wrong, and they were going to deport him. And he was literally just trying to travel in the US, nothing else. And they finally just let him go, but no apologies or anything, just like, okay, we've asked you enough questions. And so anyway, just that's a story that came to mind.
What I feel is like, these people have authority, and sometimes, or most of the times, some people want to use their authority because they like the power over you.
Right.
It's just that they can do it, so they do it. And I don't know, they have problems at home, they are upset. Okay, there is someone, okay, I can just exercise the power over and feel good about myself. And there are really nice people out there as well. You know, when I told you about this being kicked out of Greece with the persona non grata, this man was just so tough. And then some other guy, a supervisor, came and he just asked, he just looked at my passport and he just saw all the visas and things. And it's obvious that I'm not trying to cheat or sneak in or whatever. And I'm just going back to my country. And I said, okay, next time just be careful and whatever. And then he just let me go. But it could have been that I would be stuck with that mean person there. And then I wouldn't have been any chance to go there. So I don't know. These are just random things. And when I get stuck, I just try another person if I can find someone.
Yeah, it's a good idea. You just never know. It's kind of a crapshoot in terms of who you get, what their personality is like. And sometimes it's someone's having a bad day and you just hit it at the wrong time. And other times it's easy and you just breeze right in and no problems. But one thing you mentioned that you wanted to do more striking at the root instead of hacking at branches. And I like the way you phrase that, but I wanted to hear what exactly do you mean by that in terms of changing things?
Yeah. Thing is, the star thrower story. There's this man who has the starfish going into the shore, and then he throws a starfish to the sea, and then someone comes up and says, what are you doing? You cannot save all the starfish. And I says, well, it made a difference for this one. It is true, but I never liked that story. And I see, there are many people working for refugees or migrants because they are just trying to set up a life. They are human. And so there are many people who are trying to help them. And it's fine and it should be done. I'm not saying that people should stop. But then the more important thing, we should stop these starfishes or people being stranded or being drowned or being whatever without states or getting into all these troubles. We should stop it. And the strike at the root is just, where is the root? The root is birthplace racism or global apartheid, that is with these visas and with this crooked political system. So we should really change this political construct. And I came up with this sentence that actually this was related to the 40-hour work week. And there was a news article in The Guardian, I suppose we'd say, it's clear that it's not working. So the case is clear. Let's start doing something about it. And to me, it's the same. The freedom of movement, the free right of everybody to travel on the world that we are born. The case should be clear because really there is no logical explanation or there is no other logical way. Like you said, none of these things pass the logic test. They won't pass the test of time either. So the thing is, how do we start making this possible? That's what we should be discussing. We shouldn't be wasting more time on whether it should be done or it can be done or whatever. It has to be done. Okay? So it's not, I don't like this. You accept God give me the strength. I don't like that as well. Just to accept the things that I cannot change. No, I'm not accepting it because it's unacceptable. So it has to be changed somehow. So we have to start discussing how to make it possible. I mean, I understand, like the Berlin Wall came down, like the slavery. I mean, people just could not imagine how life it will be. I mean, and then people call me, you are a dreamer. It's just not going to be happening or whatever. To me, the real dreamers are the ones who think that things will be staying the way they are. It will be changing, but I just wish that I could be a catalyst in that change. And it doesn't take, 100 years or 2 centuries from now to make this change. So that's why we need to strike at the root and get to the root cause.
Yeah. And how do you think that we can start doing that? Like, how do you get this conversation? I mean, I guess like podcasts like this, but like, how do we get this conversation out there to where people are actually talking about this thing that really does matter and not just focusing on all this stuff that's like pretty irrelevant, or it's kind of on, like you said, the branches is kind of on the side that's really not going to change anything fundamentally.
Well, that's a tough one. I have tried all this time, but I haven't got anywhere. As I said, I started to open up. I tried to open up these topics in travel groups or in with friends and whatever. It doesn't get anywhere. People say, yeah, we agree with you. Yeah, okay, you agree with me, but then you have to do something about it. You have to, put a like is not enough. I don't get much likes. I don't have many followers as well. Because these are not the things that people are interested in. People just go for the simple things. And for this kind of stuff, you have to really think about it and then agree with it and then feel a moral outrage against it. And I understand, as I said, even the ones who are discriminated against accept the status quo because there is years and years of indoctrination behind that. And for example, I got to this Bulgarian man. He was so angry. He was just so angry. And he said he would be just getting out his rifle and going out to kill people who wanted to come into his country. And I said, stay away from my country, stay away from my continent. And I said, why? Your continent. Okay, why not the world? Why do you stop at the continent? The whole world belongs to us. But then you have to accept that it belongs to other people as well. But anyway, when I say all these things, people say, okay. But then they go on with their life because I understand it's not on the agenda. It has to be on the main media, mainstream, or it has to go really underground, but then get to the people. So I wish I could do more. And basically, I plan to one day, but I now have a small child and I'm responsible for if I can go to the universities and at least talk to the new generation, because the new generation has to grow up with a different mindset, or at least with the questions, because this generation, I'm sort of don't have much hope in it, may I say. So at least if we can just put that question mark or put a different kind of seed in the minds of the next generation, the growing up, they might be, because the world is changing as well, because more people are starting to question, because there is more mobility. You come into contact with so many people. And I was feeling, I am all this for multicultural life and I am the world traveler. But, in Turkey, I was traveling and I went to Diyarbakir, which is the Kurdish part. And then I got on a minibus and then I heard people speaking Kurdish. And I felt so strange, and this is my country. They are speaking in a different language. And then I felt ashamed when I thought of it. I should have learned a couple of Kurdish words. No, at least it's just normal. And now people are sort of, there's progress in Turkey as well. The Kurdish couldn't speak the Kurdish beforehand. Now they are just, and then there are so many Black people, Africans here in Italy. I just walk into them and I have these things, or I see Arabs in Istanbul in the city center. I feel strange. Yeah, but we have to come to terms with this. The world is never going to be the same as 50 years ago. We don't have these national identities anymore. Plus, there are so many mixed couples like me or like many other people, and the children growing up. Where do you define your identity? And these things are going to be breaking up, I think. But
I think you're right. It's just a matter of time. It just almost has to go that way. Did you ever read that book, The Sovereign Individual?
No, I didn't. What is that?
Oh, it's so it was written in 1997, and it's about how in the coming decades the nation state itself is going to go away. Mm-hmm. And they talk about how the phases of that, and the first phase was that countries are going to break up into smaller countries first. Mm-hmm. So like the Soviet Union broke up into many small countries, and people saw the advantage of capitalism that they never had before. And so the authors were saying that's going to happen in the US too. Like there's going to be different regions that break away and form their own countries. But then eventually people are going to see that this is just silly, like we have all these countries and what's the point of all this? So it's an interesting book, the way they break it down. And they actually predicted the rise of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. And this is in the 90s, which is pretty amazing.
I'll be checking that out too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good read. It's a definitely good read. Just the things that they kind of knew about back then that they thought were going to happen, and some of the things have already happened. Yeah. So before we kind of wrap this up, you had a quote that I also wanted to read. You have a lot of great quotes on your blog, by the way, but this one was the power of the lie does not come from the powerless of the truth. The lie has formed a mob. The truth is alone.
Yeah, that is just what I was referring to. I suppose that quote comes from Yaşar Kemal, and he's worldwide known, and he's the most famous Turkish writer, along with Orhan Pamuk. And he's of Kurdish origin, and he didn't know Kurdish, and he wrote all these. He grew up in the countryside in Turkey, so he wrote all these nice stories and books, and that's a quote from one of his stories. So yes, exactly. I mean, the thing is, the lie. I mean, to me, the biggest lie is just we are different people. We have all these nations. You are American. We are all humans. But the truth is just, unfortunately, the voice is just so low and is not heard and is alone and is left alone most of the time. And on the other side, there is the mob who just attacks you. And then even if people agree with the truth or whatever, they are so afraid to speak up and to stand and to form a group to speak up against the lie. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's kind of like what happens often on social media with posts that people just attack, and it's just gotten crazy. And I kind of think that we're almost at that like peak of all this stuff where it might actually turn somehow. I don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but it might start to turn towards these ideas and towards the truth and towards better things in life than to gang up on someone on Twitter or something like that.
Yeah, I think so, and I hope so. I mean, I think all this kind of spreading of untruths, half-truths, post-truths, and all this kind of stuff, it's just worsening the world that we are living in. And I was thinking, I mean, I know nice people. I know people who have great ideas or who are reasonable and logical and think alike, but then they are just alone here and there and whatever. And all the other people are just in a mob and attacking you, and then so you feel alone and you just want to just isolate yourself, and that's what happens, and that's not good, of course.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's not going to help anything. I guess, do you see any other, probably the last thing, and I have to kind of wrap this up here, but do you see any other like glimmers of hope or light at the end of the tunnel, anything that is sort of encourages you to keep going on this quest?
As I said, I mean, I would have thrown out. I don't know how many times I said, I'm giving up, I'm not doing this or whatever. But I know myself, because there are some things that are very important to me, and I know I don't give up on those things. My husband sometimes tells me when we are heading for a mall, for example, and he misses an exit, and I say, okay, let's go home, let's forget about it. And he says, oh, why not? You are giving up so easily, we have to go. And he just goes around and around. I said, this is not worth it. But I stick to, I mean, with all the first two, let me say, the third one was not so, I didn't have to stick through it. But the first two was hard. On your own, going through all this kind of stuff, trying, struggling, coming against obstacles. I know that I want to do it, and I will, even though I feel like giving up, it's just like, I can't go on, but then I will go on. So I just go on, and I know I will be going on because it's very important to me. That's the core of my belief. It's my definition, my life. That's what I want to devote my life to. So I know I will be going on with this. But as for the hope, that's another thing. Before I had a child, I was sort of, how do you say, upset at the world and sort of pessimistic, and I didn't see much hope. The world is just going in flames and it's just going towards the bad or whatever. But after I had a child, I don't know, I feel that I have to be optimistic and hopeful because I have a child. I cannot be pessimistic like, okay, the world is bad, okay, let me leave it. I have to be optimistic, and so I think it has helped me in a way to keep going, and otherwise I might have been, I don't know, down in the dumps and just mourning or whatever.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Focusing on the new generation versus, like the current one I think that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Gulen, it's been awesome chatting with you. This is just a really fascinating topic, and I hope you have a lot of success. And I want to support you any way I can, and hopefully the listeners as well.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, and good luck with the next leg of your travels.
Yeah, thank you very much. Good luck with your endeavors as well.